Blue 22.
You are watching Sports and Sorts live on YouTube. That's 75% sports, 25% sorts. And here are your hosts, Shane and the Bry Man.
Ooh. It is Shane and the Bry Man. And I am not the Bry Man.
No.
And
but I am.
You are not the Shane.
No.
But we are here with Sports and Sorts on a Monday, the day after
Sunday.
a glorious Mother's Day.
It was. It was nice.
So we have some stuff to talk about. If you look in the title, obviously we are going to be talking about The Last Dance because that is a very intriguing, very entertaining docuseries. I've really enjoyed it. Even this series, there was, so I'm not going to get into it yet, but there is a part during that. There was a part during this thing that the music choices that they've had in these
tremendous.
Oh my God, they get me
so great.
Hype sometimes.
They do, yeah, they do.
And there was a particular song that I just every time I hear the beginning of it, I literally like get out of my seat and I start like jumping around like a maniac. And no matter what, it always happens. But we're going to get into, we can start off with, this is Sports and Sorts. We're here on Mondays, sometimes on Fridays. When sports come back, we'll be here Mondays and Fridays. And all that kind of stuff. We'll get back to that. We will probably touch on the coronavirus, aka the COVID-19 virus that's going on, because we're going to be talking about that with the NFL and Fauci. He kind of gave us his feeling about what's going on and what should go on and what might go on. We'll talk about Trevor Bauer and his phone number debacle. Bryman tried to call him.
I did.
Wanted to, give him his 2 cents, but unfortunately, there was
I
no
wanted
answer.
to see what the sweepstakes was. I would have taken a pair of side cleats from him and a ball. Why not?
So there's that, and he's going to give a little money in the bank rating. Not talking about too much.
Yeah.
And then we might even get into a little bit other stuff about like stimulus stuff and who knows? Who knows? So many things to talk about today.
All that and more on today's episode of Sports and Sorts with Shane and the Bry Man. That's our outro music. It's too early for that.
All right. So let's start off with The Last Dance. I want to hear your thoughts on the latest 2 episodes where they definitely get into more of, Jordan's father's death. They talk about possible implications of, did that have to do with him gambling and all that? And then also, did he get suspended? And was it that, or was it just more of a, him actually stepping away from the game of basketball? And you had some prominent figures in baseball talk about Jordan possibly, if they gave him enough time, could he made the pros? They think so. And I'm probably in agreement with that because I think he was just that good of an athlete. I don't think he would have been great, but I don't think he would have been an all-star. But
he would have been better than Tebow. He would have made it. I think he could have made the dance. Yeah,
without a doubt.
I agreed with. I don't know who said it, but somebody said if he had 1,500 at bats, in the minors, he would have made it to the next level. I do agree with that.
Yeah,
I think he would have too.
I think he could have been a 4th/5th outfielder.
Yep.
Like he would have never been like a guaranteed starter on a decent team. He might have been a starter on a bad team, like a left fielder on a bad team where he batted .250 and knocked in 60 RBIs and hadn't scored about 50 runs.
Yeah.
Stole about 15 to 18 bases. Like nothing crazy, but
these were the 2 episodes that interested me the most from the beginning. I mean, I didn't know when they would take place, but these were the 2 that I wanted to see the most. And the reason why is because the baseball stuff, I don't know if you know that, I did not used to like Michael Jordan. I used to hate Michael Jordan when I was a kid. Never liked him for a lot of the reasons that I think most people do dislike him. The arrogance and the trash talking. And I I don't know. There was something about him that I never liked.
Yes.
When he decided to play baseball, and it wasn't that decision in and of itself that made me like him. It was the fact that he failed at it. But he did it because baseball was his first love, and it was something that he so passionately wanted to try. Mm-hmm. And he was willing to embarrass himself on what he knew would be a national stage, even if he was traveling around and he did. And they showed some of those highlights last night of the embarrassment. I mean, of course, a lot of it starts with the 13-game hitting streak, but then all of a sudden they start throwing him curveballs and he turns into Pedro Serrano before Pedro Serrano, starts working with Joe Boo again. But the bottom line is, Jesus Christ couldn't hit a curveball. So, and he couldn't. And that was kind of where the wheels started to fall off the wagon. Then they showed some of the highlights of him fumbling around in left field, displaying a ball at the wall. And, I do agree with the analysis though, that with maybe enough at bats, because then he took it as a challenge. Like, oh, you can't hit a curveball. Well, I'll show you, because that's the Michael Jordan way, which of course we'll also get into, because that sort of comes up later. Michael's ability to motivate himself.
Yeah.
With naysayers or just shit that he makes up in his head. And I find the shit that he makes up in his head to be way more fascinating than the actual motivators. I mean, anybody can be motivated by something where people will criticize you. That usually does serve as motivation, and it kicks your ambition up a notch. Michael, of course, never needed that. He would just create stuff in his head, which makes you wonder, like, is there a psychosis issue of some kind? But who cares? Like, what's funny? At the beginning, I remember before this series started, Michael Jordan went on record saying, if you didn't hate me before the series, you will hate me afterwards. Well, there are only 2 episodes left.
Yep.
And I love him more than I ever did. So whatever motivation or whatever his thought process was as to why people would dislike him after this, and maybe he was just saying that because he thought, there's just going to be a lot of stuff that kind of shows he was an asshole. But we all know he was an asshole. That's not really up for debate. I think he essentially admitted that himself last night.
Yeah.
That's not really the question. The question is, did he do anything really bad? And so far, I would say no. I mean, the gambling thing, look, we don't know what's ever going to come of that. Because again, I think if there was any truth to that, it would have died with David Stern. But I don't know. That's one of those conspiracy theories that you just don't know about. But let me go back to the baseball thing, though. So I got off track. This was the reason that I actually did start to like Michael Jordan, was because he was willing to do this to himself. He was the greatest basketball player ever when he left. Before he had won 3 more championships, he was already maybe the greatest of all time. He was absolutely in the conversation. He solidified that when he came back.
Yeah.
But he was willing to do it because he said he had just reached maximum capacity with basketball. He was burnt out. He was tired. He was beat up. The years of carrying that team up and down the road. 82 game rigorous schedule.
Having that kind of ferocious tenacity, like all the time.
I mean, you can imagine that's emotionally and physically draining. Yeah,
that would absolutely destroy you. And it's not like he just does that on the basketball court. He takes that into the other side of his life with
everything in his life. Yeah, or everything. Gambling. I mean, playing coins with a security guard in the United Center. Yeah, I mean everything. So he takes 21 months off, pursues the passion of baseball. All of this in the wake of his father's murder, so that was actually where I started to really like him. And these were the parts 7 and 8 that I was really interested in. And these episodes did not disappoint. I can tell you that. So the high spot there was sort of the reliving of that a little bit. I will tell you, I am a self-admitted emotional crier.
Yeah.
And when they show, and I've seen, and it's not like you haven't seen this footage a million times, but when they show when they showed the image of him after the 94 or the 95, what was it? The 90, when he first came back and they won their first one, his 4th championship.
Yeah.
And they show him, the 95-96 team. they show him winning his first championship since his father's passing, and he's just holding the ball in the locker room and crying by himself. I was like, I lost it. I lost it because you know what that meant to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and how, but at the same time, how awful it was for him to celebrate what was actually, as far as team sports go, that was really his greatest moment, because that was the best team ever. That's still, in my opinion, the greatest basketball team ever, because even though the 17 Golden State Warriors won one more game in the regular season, they did not get the job done.
Right.
They didn't get it done. Mm-hmm. And Michael did. And because the Warriors ran into LeBron. And, you know, sometimes the best player in the world can stop something like that. But when the best player in the world is actually leading the team that's part of that charge, it happens.
Indeed.
And it did. And that must have been, you talk about the definition of the word bittersweet. Mm-hmm. That had to have been it for Michael Jordan. To have his greatest on-court accomplishment and not be able to celebrate it with his father. After coming back from playing baseball for 2 years, stepping back out of getting the itch again, starts practicing with the team. And fails.
Body's not in great shape.
Right. Not in basketball shape.
Not in the Jordan type shape that he wants.
Right. And so the failure of that 94
and not only a failure, but it was failure on him because he missed the shot. He got picked.
He did.
There is lots of things that you didn't normally see with Jordan.
He did. And he had his moments in that comeback season, the 50, when he dropped the double nickel in the Garden. Mm-hmm. He had his big moments, but in the postseason, his legs were just gone. He didn't have
he didn't play a full season either. That wasn't even a full. That was like a quarter of a season.
And that just goes to show you how the difference between being in basketball shape and baseball shape.
Two different sports.
Different.
You do need your legs in baseball for sure.
But you could also be Cecil Fielder in baseball.
Right, but I bet you Cecil Fielder could squat probably about 600 pounds.
I'm sure he could, but I wouldn't.
So like you could have strong legs, but not the. You're not running constantly.
He could definitely box out like a motherfucker too.
Yeah,
basketball,
like you're not like
probably wouldn't have the stamina.
Baby Davis.
You're right, but he wouldn't have the stamina to run up and down the court.
Right, that's the thing you need the running up and down the court kind of like elasticity of your legs.
Again,
not necessarily
going back to your point about everything that goes into being Michael Jordan. It's not just the physical; it's the mental. So. Mm-hmm. He needed to be 100% of himself to get the most out of himself and the team. Mm-hmm. And he just wasn't able to do that. Now, I thought, I thought that was probably one of the more fascinating things too, was just that you saw him come back. I guess it would have been midway through the season because it was like March. And even Superman had a little bit of kryptonite, and it just, these were all the reasons why I started to actually like him. It was that playing baseball for 2 years, being willing to humiliate himself on a pretty big stage where he was being covered daily and he knew it. And then getting the itch to play basketball again, transitioning back and still failing there too. Mm-hmm. And the initial, before getting ultimate, not just redemption, but just ultimate, joy. Yeah. But then also sadness because he couldn't celebrate that big moment with his dad. It was these were probably my two favorite episodes.
Yeah, they were good. They were very good. There was a particular part where they started talking about him and they started playing some highlights and all that kind of stuff. And they played a song that I absolutely love. It's a song that every time I hear it, I get so hype. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yes, that was great.
I was like, oh man, and I was going bananas.
You know what else I like about how
I immediately went from like being like kind of serious, like because what I do is kind of.
You went from 6 to 12.
Exactly. So I was sitting there, and as I do when I'm watching this, I tend to sit there and just practice putting on my living room floor. I'll putt back and forth, and I'll keep my eye on the screen, and I watch, and I just keep doing it, and then I'll sit down for a little bit. And I had just sat down, and that song came on, and I was like, I stood right back up, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm like, and I was going bananas. I was going absolutely. It made me. I was like, it was late because I didn't start watching it until after 10. So like
I didn't either. So.
and I was like, it was late, and I'm like, and that song came on, and I immediately got so incredibly hyped, and I was just like, and then I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to calm down for like an hour now.
What I'm liking too about this is that not only is the music choice
so great,
perfect,
so great,
but the fact that they basically will play the entire song too and have like a montage to go with. It's not just like an excerpt, like if you're watching a movie, you might get a third, if that, of a song, maybe a quarter of a song.
Yeah.
For a montage. This you get like the whole song, and everything just gets you hyped. It's really great. This is look, this series is not meant specifically to be about Jordan, but it really is.
It is.
And I'm loving it because it's a remind. Not that any of us needed it, because we've always had this debate about GOAT and stuff like that for years, but it's just such a reminder of. So whether leave the GOAT stuff out of it, it's just a reminder of how great and the magnitude of this particular individual. I mean,
I'll tell you, like one of the things that, because where I am, I kind of have Jordan and LeBron at 1A, 1B kind of status. And this whole documentary, this whole docu-series, whatever you want to call it, has actually taken me from where I was. And now I have some separation, a little more separation between the two. And I'm giving that separation, whereas Jordan at now is not head and shoulders, but kind of like eyebrow and the whole forehead above LeBron now.
Sure.
Because you get to see, and you've always heard about it, and there's like glimpses here and there and talks about it and stuff like that, but you never really got to see this much of the competitive fire.
Right.
And this is the thing that I think that
the
only thing that LeBron lacks. I think that LeBron is just as smart, if not smarter, when it comes to basketball. I think he is probably a better teammate, as far as more like the Pippen, like how they described him in this. It was like he was a really giving guy, putting your arm around you, lifting you up, and all that kind of stuff. Where Jordan
Jordan
would keep pushing you down until you charged through that wall. Jordan would keep pushing you down until you were like ready to burst through that wall.
Right.
And Scott Burrell, like they talked to him a bunch in this, and they were, they really were focused on him and talking about how Jordan was all over him. And,
he ragged him.
And Burrell was, to his credit,
took it
and gave it back, but not in a way that, he was more of a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and wasn't going to be really that, but he did step up. He had that playoff game where he dropped 23, he was raining buckets.
Yes.
And that is one of those things that, off the court, then even Scott Burrell even said off the court, he was different. And then they showed a couple of Scott Burrell's friends that, from UConn or whatever it was, and like how he was in there, and he was, talking to him, and he busted, and even Jordan was, hey, they have a good women's team, don't they? All that kind of stuff. Like,
it's great.
And like, it's one of those, it's just, there's two sides. And I do believe that his tenacity, because that's kind of, so how I played baseball was very much that way. I always aimed to work harder than everybody. Like I definitely wasn't the most talented. I had talent, but if I saw that somebody was better than me, I was going to continue to work and work and work and work and work until I was better. And that's the only way that I felt like I could succeed, is if I worked harder than the next guy. And that's how I always approach sports. I was like, I'm going to sit there, like in baseball, I was not necessarily the greatest fielder growing up. So what I did was I took 2 to 250 ground balls a day. I wasn't the greatest hitter, but I was good at both, but I wasn't great. So what I did was I took 200 plus swings a day. Yep. And like I wasn't, I wasn't the fastest, but what I did was I ran lots of sprints. So this way my stamina was better than everybody else. So like when we would do our suicides, I would always finish first, not because I was the fastest, because I was fast and I just my lungs were better. Right. Like, so that's what I would try and do to help with all of that. I would just keep working and working and working, but I wasn't the guy that was going to get in your face like him.
Yeah.
I was the quiet guy. that was doing all this, and you just had to watch and learn more than anything else. And Jordan's different. Jordan was the kind of guy that could not only do all that, but also take it upon him mentally to challenge everybody else and still be able to have enough fire left in him. Like when they were talking about Space Jam and how he was coming back and he would be filming for 7-8 hours. Then he would have a 3-hour pickup game.
Right. He had his Jordan Dome built. And
all these NBA players.
How cool were those highlights, huh?
Those were awesome.
Seeing like Juwan Howard and just everybody. I mean, everybody.
Mullins
Rodman.
And, you got to see everybody.
They were all there. Yeah. They all wanted
Reggie
to be part of
Miller,
that. Reggie, shirtless Reggie, shirtless Juwan Howard. These guys all in ridiculous shape.
Yeah. and then he would play basketball for 3 hours, and then he would lift for 2 hours, and then go to bed for 4, and then come back and do it all again, and still do well.
This is why he has the legend and the legacy that he has.
Right, and that's the difference. I think that's the main difference. It's not that because if LeBron had the same teams that Jordan did, would he won 6? Probably. I mean, Jordan had some really good teams. Yeah. But the difference is there's also a chance that he might not have because he wouldn't have been as hard on his teammates, and his teammates might have not have stepped up like they did.
Right. There were two sort of preconceived notions that we always knew about Michael Jordan going into this series. One was that he was an incredible trash talker, and two was that he could find ways to motivate himself that were just absurd.
That fake one was great.
So let's talk about that, which was the LeBradford Smith Washington Bullets before they became the Wizards, the artist formerly known as the Washington Bullets.
Because all you have to do is tell, all Mike had to do was tell one person that. Right. And it was going to spread like wildfire.
And it was real.
We're going to talk about it in the clubhouse, and then
it
would kind of ingrain into the truth. You tell a lie.
And the way Michael Wilbon was talking about it as they were like breaking it down was like, this was 100% true. This absolutely happened. And then at the end, they cut to the story, and Mike's like, I made it up. Yeah. Just wow. Yeah, but so again, for those of you who didn't watch it, basically what happened was they were playing a home-and-home game against the Bullets. Mm-hmm. First game, I think, was in Chicago, and then the next night was in Washington. Mm-hmm. And that night, LeBradford Smith, who was actually a very high draft pick for the
I vaguely remember this. It's not like a real clear memory. But
I did not remember this at
because I remember seeing that and being like, "Oh man, LeBradford Smith is the real deal."
So so he drops 37 in Chicago that night, I think. And the story is that he goes up to Michael after the game and says, "Hey, nice game, Mike." That's it. Yeah. Nothing inflammatory.
But that's just says, but it is nice. Though.
Well, to Michael Jordan it is.
But if you lose and you outscore the guy and I play him
so Michael then the next night as serendipity would have it, they have to go.
That would have ticked me off. No tomorrow. I would have been so mad.
They go into Washington and Mike says, "I'm gonna drop in the first half on this team what he did in the entire game," and he almost did. He scored 36. So he was 1 point less, which I'm sure pissed him off because he was probably thinking, God damn it, I should have had a free throw in there somewhere. Yeah. And I don't remember what he ended up scoring total in the game, but it was in the 40s or low 50s, I think. But he did what he said he was going to do. And then afterwards he admitted that he was completely made it up. Mm-hmm. So all these stories that you've ever heard over the years about Michael Jordan just making shit up to motivate himself, it's all true. It's not hyperbole. It's all real.
You got to do it. Yeah.
And then
keep yourself motivated.
So the other thing that we talked about is, that Michael Jordan is, you've always known he's a great trash talker because you can always see it and hear it on broadcast. And
it's not that. It's just angry too. It's it's usually he's you got the fire in his eyes.
He's so mad. He gets so mad. I love it. I love it. Yeah. I love it. It's why I love him. Yeah. Because I didn't play angry like that when I played sports, but I did play with a great deal of passion. I'm not always angry. If I got mad, it was usually at myself, but his intensity is just at a different level. Like that, they're just some of the scenes where he's just yelling at referees, and you can see there's demons in his eyes. It's just a different kind of fuel that fires this guy.
He just wanted it a lot more than everybody else.
But what I'm loving about this series is it's not just the on-court trash talking; it's the off-court razzing of his teammates. That is just so you've already talked about some of it with Scott Burrell, but I love it. But even just like down to the clubhouse guys, the guy that they had the guy from UConn there, like you said, he was he was trash talking that guy. He signed autographs for him, but he's still trash talking that guy.
Yeah, he was like, I'm a collector. That's gonna be $1,000.
But the beauty of Jordan is that he does it, and it just comes so naturally to him. Like if you could not be a good enough screenplay writer to write perfect dialogue for Michael Jordan that he couldn't already produce on his own. His dialogue and his ability to relate to people through trash talking and through that kind of razzing is, I think, another thing that separates him from a lot of other athletes. And they even kind of somebody made this comment. It was like, he might not have been like the greatest guy and he might have been an asshole, but he could relate to people off the court though.
Oh yeah.
And you've seen a lot of examples of that actually in this. And I have enjoyed that a lot too. So those two things were, if you were going to ask me, like, if there were things that you wanted to learn more about MJ, what would they have been? I would have loved to have seen more of the trash talking, which we have absolutely seen because we're seeing on and off the court. And I would have loved to have heard some of the stories about how he motivated himself. And the LeBradford Smith one is just, and I don't even think that's probably the best one. I'm sure there are others, and maybe we'll hear some more in the last couple episodes. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, anything, if you can make shit up in your head like that and then tell people just so you have like witnesses.
Yeah. Like, so you tell people, because all he has to do is tell one person and everybody knows him. Right. So they're going to be like spreading it like wildfire.
Right.
Like, and it's going to, like, if he goes to like, BJ Armstrong, or he goes to Bill Cartwright, or he goes to, Pippen or somebody and just says, can you believe what this guy just did?
Do you believe what this motherfucker said?
He said, blah, 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 blah. And then Pip would be like, oh. And then he would go in and he'd be like, dude, you have no idea what that guy LeBradford Smith did. He's going to be done. He's done tomorrow. Right. Like, and then that goes to him and that goes to him and then it leaks to the press and then it's out there.
By the time it gets up to like upper management, it's like, did you hear that Michael was going to carry a knife and kill LeBradford Smith on the court tomorrow? I mean, like, that's how, like, it would have gotten to like high school level of exaggeration by the time it starts to work its way around the building.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh. So, and he's going to stab him 37 times in the first half.
I heard Michael had a gun. Is it true that Michael brought?
No, that was Rodman.
Is it true that Michael brought a revolver into the building?
So yeah, it's one of those things that he is definitely a different bird. Like, he is really, really different, but at the same time, you kind of awe-inspiring. Like, it's just, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. But I don't know. It's overall, I mean, you see all that. You see all the talking, the trash talking that happens, and the play. But like, even like the Nick Anderson one, where he 45 ain't 23, and all that kind of stuff. And sure enough, and then he came back the next day wearing the 23.
43.
But then the next year, what happened when he had his legs under him again?
Yes, right.
Swept. like don't
handily swept.
Yeah,
like those games weren't even close.
Don't go trash talking. Like,
and keep in mind that was a good Magic team. It's a good team. Penny,
not good.
Shaq,
like, they went to the finals.
Right.
Like,
that's a Penny team, a Shaq team, Nick
they
Anderson.
Got beat by my team.
It was a good team. It was a really good team. I mean, that's a team that you, in hindsight, could have seen winning a championship if Jordan weren't around.
Nobody can touch that Dream Shake.
Well, the Dream Shake. Hey, the Dream Shake still gives me nightmares. David Robinson. Oh, that one
nightmares.
The one that he did to David Robinson, though, was just, I mean, it might as well have been like committing a murder. It was just.
You saw like Robinson's soul leave his body. He shaked his soul out of his body.
But luckily, us Spurs fans have 5 championships to keep us cozy at night. So
I got 2. I'm good.
We're okay. We're okay.
Back to back. That's good.
But
thanks for taking that break, Jordan.
This
we would. I still think we would have got one.
Well, I was going to say, I actually wish he hadn't taken the break, because I would have loved to have seen him against those Rocket teams.
Yeah, those were good teams because they were physical, plus they were clutch, plus you had one of the greatest centers of all time.
I mean, I would say
in his prime.
Because Olajuwon at that time, he would have been a top 5 player in the league. Jordan would have still been, one.
Mm-hmm.
But the teams would have been very closely matched, though.
Mm.
There were a lot of good role players on those Rocket teams, too. And, obviously the Bulls teams had good role players as well. But
the clutch.
They were more
Mr. Clutch there.
They were more top heavy, though, I think the Bulls teams were. But because you really, Jordan, Pippen, and then you had, it trickled down from there with your role players.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rockets teams, I think, were a much more well-rounded team. Those would have been fun series. They would have been, because it would have been very contrasting styles too,
mm-hmm.
because everything, fed through Olajuwon. So you would have had the triangle going up against, everything kind of funneling in through and out of the center. And I think that would have been a very fascinating series.
Yeah.
Probably 2 series, to be honest.
Yeah. I think it would have been great.
We'll never know. The world will never know.
I definitely, you would have saw Jordan lose one, and then he probably would have came back and destroyed them the next time.
I could have seen him, right. Like, I could have seen him losing the first one in, 94, 95, or 93, 94, and then, coming back with vengeance the next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was, I don't know.
Well, who knows? We'll never know.
But instead, I got 2, so I'm content. 2 championships is good by me. In the NBA, and now we have a team that just doesn't play defense anymore. But that doesn't matter because they're not even playing anything right now.
I'm happy with my 5. I'm very happy with that. I mean, that's matching the Yankees. So, I mean, come on, that's royalty. They went from ABA jokes to NBA royalty. The Spurs in a 20-year span. So
thank you, Timmy D.
Good. Thank you, Tim Duncan. Thank you, David Robinson. Thank you, Greg Popovich, R.C. Buford. Thanks, guys. Oh, Ori. Yeah, I mean, sure. What throw Rob? Big shot.
Ori helps out everybody.
He did.
Ori
you get a ring. You get a ring.
Exactly. Yeah. He's got what, 8, 9?
He's got 8, I think. Yeah. He's got 2 more than Jordan.
Yeah. How many? I'm gonna check real quick. Hold on.
I think he's got 8. I think so. It was a very impressive career, and it was a really good role player on a lot of teams, and he hit a lot. Did Big Shot Bob hit
7 times?
Share
7.
It was 7? Okay. Yeah, that's
7.
still awesome. I mean, listen, that's rarefied air. There's not a lot of guys who get that many championships. Yeah. Mickey Mantle has 7 championships. There's not too many guys with that. Then you got our boy Yogi Berra with 10. That's so many rings. It's Bill Russell.
Lots of rings.
Lots of rings. Lots of rings.
Lots of rings everywhere. You get a ring, you get a ring.
Yeah. I will tell you though, man, that was but yeah, so just to put a cap on this is a great series. I really look forward to the last 2 episodes. These 2 last night were my favorite because I knew the baseball stuff was coming, and I knew that was the stuff I wanted to hear the most about, and it didn't disappoint. I am unbelievably impressed with this series. I really am. It's just so good. So good. They've really outdone them. ESPN has really outdone itself. And I haven't been a big fan of ESPN. So I even found myself getting hyped. Yeah.
That song.
I was sobbing like a baby though, watching him on that floor, clutching that back.
Even the time where he was just like talking about it, and he's like, break. And you could see it was about to just come down.
Oh yeah. Yes. Right. It's like still, because he said break.
Yeah.
He had to cut himself off. Mm-hmm. And that was the end of that episode, which was a great way to end that episode too, by the way. Mm-hmm. They've done a really good job. It's a really good job with this.
Yeah.
I have to tip my cap to ESPN.
And so far, I don't know why he said what he said. I can see how this could rub the people the wrong way because he was vicious to his teammates, but even his teammates like Wennington and Long, all these guys were like,
but it was worth it.
He's like, you're step on the cape, but hold on,
right?
Hold on, and we'll take you to the promised land. And he's like, all right. So he knew he was going to be rough.
And the cape thing is pretty funny too because he is Superman, but without the humility.
Right. Yeah.
There's no humble pie for Michael Jordan, but that's what you love about him, though. Yeah. And if that's what he thought people would hate, I think he's going to be mistaken on that one.
Yeah. I think you're going to get some people.
Maybe, but this is only making me like
I want to
more,
see.
so it's
I
having
want
an
to
opposite
see.
effect for me.
I want to see how this changes some people in the NBA, though. I want to see if it changes some people and
And
their
and how do you mean?
to be more on top of their teammates.
Okay, I thought that's what you were going to say. Now, okay.
Because there's only a handful of people that could do this in the NBA.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's not many people who could pull that off.
Kevin Durant
and pull it off successfully.
Could possibly do it. It's going to be
Oh, yeah,
tough
that
to
would
do
be-
that with like a Kyrie.
Yeah,
It's going to be someone like Steph Curry can't do it. He's just can't. He's not big enough.
The guy who could have done it easily best is LeBron because
yeah.
he is the best player.
He doesn't have that.
Right. It's just not. That's not in him. It's not who he is.
Right.
And of course, Kobe had all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And Kobe was, like Mike. As much as you could be like Mike, he was. So, this is
all those players of that era, like Bird, Magic. I could see them doing that.
Yeah,
maybe not Magic so much, but maybe. I could see him trash talking and getting under people's skin.
This is just elevating the one thing, the thing about Jordan, as far as the reputation goes, that we already knew. Not only that he was the greatest that ever lived, but that he was also. He could just motivate himself and drive himself and push himself in ways that no other professional athlete has ever done before and really since.
Yeah, and it's also like, I don't think there's players like Giannis. I don't think Giannis could do it because I think he's just too big. When you're that big, you can't. And it's Jordan's whole thing when he was talking about the fight that he had with Steve Kerr.
Yes,
he was like, I went after the smallest guy on the court and I felt this small. Like I felt terrible afterwards. I felt like I was. Like that was just total trash. Like I went after him. He came back after me. I clocked him, and I felt terrible.
Yeah,
like
and he apologized. He manned up. He apologized,
and they felt like their relationship was closer.
And then
their
relationship got better. And Kerr, you hit some big shots for him.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's why I don't think someone like Giannis can do it because Jordan wasn't the tallest, biggest guy on the court. He would step up to the centers that were 7 feet, and he would be like, and he would get in their face, and he would intimidate them.
But none of this would have ever worked if Michael Jordan was only half the player that he was. Right. It would have that shit would have never flown. He'd have been cut by God knows how many teams.
I think that if Pippen had that drive,
still a hell of a player.
If Pippen had that drive, I think that he could have done something similar.
Right.
But he didn't have that in him. He was more of like a LeBron. Like
it just can't force personality traits on people. It doesn't.
That's
you either got to come in the league with it and have it,
or you have to have it in you, but. Wait till you get that good to really, because Jordan wasn't like that when he first started. He just worked harder than everybody else, and then he was like, "All right, now I'm a kind of a veteran. Now I'm going to take over."
Right. To some extent, he did have to work up to it. Yeah.
So and that's why you could have someone like a Kevin Durant do it, but I don't know if he can't do it to Kyrie. He would have to do it to everybody else, and then just kind of pull Kyrie along.
You got to also say that too about Jordan. His self-awareness is through the roof. He's got a very clear idea of who he was and what he was and how he could motivate people. And yes, very clear, goal oriented. He knew he had specific objectives that he wanted to achieve, and he knew how to do it. It's been, to me, this has been more a docuseries about him with the backdrop of the '98 team, but. It's really
that's what we want. So,
and I'm enjoying this all access look at him. This is a nice little, pull behind the curtain of Jordan that I don't know that I thought we'd ever get.
Yeah, no, I don't. There's no way. I never thought.
And the timing, frankly, couldn't be better because what else do we have to watch sports?
And you know what? He's back in the limelight more than ever. Like. Not just as much as he used to be. Like people are just talking about him constantly again.
I will say
because there's no other sports going on. So if you want to do this, you have to do that. Granted, something like this happens again later on. Another person that you could follow that's like this is a Tiger Woods. You could get him to open up about all this kind of stuff and have a docuseries about him. Whew, that would be another one. That's like the work ethic, the fire, everything.
There is one thing I really wish would have happened, and obviously the ship has long since sailed. But I remember a couple of years ago when he turned 50, there were some stories jokingly out there that, what if he came back? And honestly, because I love to see, and this is like in wrestling, like this is why like in wrestling, older guys last longer because it's scripted and the Undertaker is 53 years old. He's broken every bone in his body. He's a total physical mess. And yet they still throw him out there every WrestleMania because one, he draws huge money. And two, because people like me who can't let go of the past love to see it. I will tell you, I would have been all aboard that train if Michael had decided he wanted to come back even just for 1 year a few years ago, just to see. Because, the other part of him,
George Foreman.
Well, look, I don't think he would have won a championship. Let's not go Cinderella story here. But why don't we at least say maybe he could have averaged 15 to 20 points a night, and he would have played more with this than with this, and he probably could have given some. He would have had to have yielded to the better players and the better athletes on the team. But
you know what's crazy though? I think that the one thing that I've really gotten from this, and I forgot to mention this earlier, was the one thing that I've really gotten from this whole thing is that I absolutely, because this is something that we usually say that when you can do this, you can't do this. And when you can't do this, you do this. Yep. And that's when you can't play it at this level, you coach. When you can do it, you have this talent that nobody else can understand. Right. You can't coach. Right. Well, I 100% believe Jordan could absolutely coach in this league. And I think he could absolutely push his players like a LeBron or like a Durant or someone like that. And I think he could do that to this level because I think he has the brain power to be able to put the fill triangle stuff into works or however you want to put, whatever way that he wants to go about it. But he also has the gravitas to get the most out of these players.
I disagree only because I think he's the kind of guy who can't flip the switch on his expectations, and I don't think he can be realistic about expectations because I think
that's why he'd need a great player to go with to get them to that level. Because I think if he comes out and he starts riding someone like Durant and totally just turning this guy into another beast, and then riding someone like Kyrie would probably just quit.
I think he would burn out. I think Jordan would burn out on coaching because I don't think these players.
I don't think he'd have to be a coach
possibly live up to his expectations.
All his players that he played with did
on the court.
Yeah,
but to motivate, it's such a different time now.
Kevin Durant is not these guys far away from a Jordan though.
These guys are such multimillionaires. Sports is so different now than it was.
It is. I agree. They were still making a lot of money, but
that's where I think it would be. Yes, he did really still make a ton of money. Yeah. But I just think it would be hard for him because I think he would look in the eyes of some of these guys and he would say, "You don't have it. Yeah, but you just don't have it. Durant? You're a good athlete." I think you would look at a guy like Russell Westbrook.
How do you look at Jordan? I mean, Russell, forget that. How do you look at a guy like Jordan and say, "I'm not going to run through a wall for you"?
No, you're right, but I'm just saying, even that guy, given his max effort, is that still going to be enough?
I think so. I think that's all you want. You just want max effort.
I agree.
That's what he wanted. He just wanted them to give him his all. So this way,
if I were a coach, that's all I would ask of a player is just give me your best.
That's what every coach says, but you can't get that from everybody because they don't have it.
Not every coach had the demeanor and the attitude and the mindset and then the overall success of Michael Jordan too. So the expectations from him are just so high. Mm-hmm. And I'm not blaming him. No. I'm just saying realistically, I think he would burn out because I just think that nobody would be able to live up to it. And God forbid if he didn't win a championship, he'd really be a loose cannon.
He'd be a lunatic at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
because then he would take it on himself.
I don't think so. I think he would take it on himself, but he would put it back onto the players. I think that's the thing, because that's what he did in practice. He just rode his players until they did what he wanted them to do.
It'd be a little of both, I think.
With the right team, if you have the right personnel, like he had a Pippen, if you had a Durant with a Kyrie, could possibly work. I don't know. That's just, I don't think he would never want to do that.
Look, bottom line, fun series. I really love this. I wish it would never end. I wish it could just keep going, but we got 2 episodes left.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that next Monday.
And then God knows what we're gonna do. NFL, maybe not.
We'll figure out some stuff. We'll bring the wheel back. Start talking about. Bring the wheel back. Start talking about that stuff. All right. So let's get into what do you want to talk about next? Trevor Bauer's number, or do you want to talk about Fauci and the NFL?
Either
NFL
one.
and Fauci. NFL
Sure.
and Fauci. Go ahead. Talk about
Well,
it.
bottom line is Dr. Anthony Fauci, or who some consider to be either one, the president of the United States, or at the very least, America's doctor.
I would consider him that. Now, he does not want to be.
No, I don't think
He does
so.
not want to fill those shoes.
No.
That skin tone.
No. I would actually think you'd want to fill those shoes because they'd be really easy shoes to fill right now.
Well, not with the repercussions that are going to follow. Although he would make better decisions, especially in the situation that we're at right now. But
yeah, I just. So, anyways, yesterday I guess Fauci was talking about. They were talking to him about the NFL, and he basically said that he was sort of a. This was sort of a good news, bad news sort of diagnosis from him, if you will. But there was talk. They were saying basically, with the presumption that tests are easily and readily available by August, Fauci said it would be possible for players who test negative to play football, and some fans may even be able to attend. So here's his quote about that. I think it's feasible that negative testing players could play to an empty stadium. Is it guaranteed? No way. There will be virus out there, and you will know your players are negative at the time they step onto the field. You're not endangering. Also, if the virus is so low that even in the general community the risk is low, then I could see filling a third of the stadium or half the stadium so people could be 6 feet apart. I mean, that's something that is, again, feasible depending on the level of infection. He did say for that to happen, though, progress needs to be made. He said if the NFL season were beginning right now, it simply could not happen. And here's what he said about that. Right now, if you fast forward and it is now September, the season starts. I say you can't have a season. It's impossible. There's too much infection out there. It doesn't matter what you do. But I would hope that by the time you get to September, it's not going to be the way it is right now.
yeah,
So there it is. America's top physician is basically, well, I mean, look, he's basically saying if things are the way they are now in September, no, you shouldn't play football, which is common sense. But if things are a little bit better, yeah, you could do it. I mean, listen, I basically have tended to agree with this guy on almost everything he says. And I mean, I guess this would really be no different. The only thing I might disagree with him on is I just don't see any scenario under which you should put fans in stands, even at a third capacity, because I just don't know how you can fill the stadium without keeping even a third of a stadium.
concessions, all that stuff. There's just
That's
so
what I'm
many-
saying. Like the concessions and those, all just the all of the what's the word? God, I've said the word every week now. The common areas where you're walking through there, all those breezeways or whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't see how do you keep people apart in those areas, even if you did it in different. I mean, maybe if you just did it in different tiers or something, like maybe
people try to get in the stadium, they're all bunched up. Like we're like,
right. That's actually the worst part is the outside of the stadium thing. There's just no way to do it. There's just no way to do that, even with a third of fans. And if you put even if you put those third of fans on one third of those fans goes on one level, and then the other third of the third goes on the other, and it
still
goes
get
on
too
the top.
close.
It's still
people
just
start talking and you don't realize where you're at, and all of a sudden
it's just
you're within an inch of
and,
17 people.
And then from a cost perspective, is it even worth it for the stadium to?
They make so much money on TV though.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the live part of it just enhances the TV part of it.
It does. Right. I mean, listen, I will tell you, it will suck balls if there is a football season this year without fans in it. But I am fully prepared for that to be the case. I just don't see a scenario under which we are watching football with fans in the stadium this year. I cannot see that.
There's something we're going to be able to talk about at the end of this month.
What's that?
The match, part 2.
Oh,
Phil, Peyton, Tiger, and Tom.
Phil, Peyton, and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Peyton and Tom Brady. That's pretty funny.
They're playing. They're going head to head in the match part 2.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and
pretty cool.
they're at the end of the month. I think it's May 24th.
Well, that should be fun.
Yeah.
Another pay-per-view kind of.
I think it's something like that. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how they're doing it, but yeah, like they're doing a part 2. I think Phil and Peyton are paired up together, and I think Tom and Tiger are paired up together.
Okay.
And they're playing golf, and they're gonna play, and they're gonna see who wins.
Cool.
So that should be fun. So we have that going on, and then that'll be at the end of the month. But like,
Yep.
yeah, this whole NFL thing, I'm with you. I don't understand how they're going to do it. They do make a ton of money revenue-wise on TV, which might make sense. But yeah, without fans there, it's going to be weird.
Yeah.
It's
just like baseball will be weird.
Just like SNL. Have you been watching SNL?
Yeah.
It is weird. You getting zero laughter from the crowd.
It's tough.
Especially those opening monologues.
You know where I struggle with it most is because I'm a huge fan of the John Oliver show.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's doing it, from his home and everything like that. And, white bat. And, he tells his jokes and then there's no laughter in the background. And it
has to be truly hilarious.
It's kind of funny, right? Like we're sort of realizing that we really do take our social cues from others.
I think it enhances it for sure. So like instead of being a smile, it's a laugh.
Right. It's a laugh. Right. Because that's how I am now. Like when I watch John Oliver, it's mostly a smile. Unless he says something really funny and then I will laugh. Yeah. Yes.
And I will. It's just not as much.
By the way, speaking of which, I did watch a movie over the weekend just by myself. This was not one with the kids. Mm-hmm. I watched that movie Good Boys. I had a few laugh out loud moments.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. I mean, in some ways it was so unrealistic.
Good Boys?
About like the way kids talk at that age.
Oh, right.
Both in the good and the bad things that they say. Like the good stuff was way too sappy. Like kids don't talk like that well. And then also kids just don't say stuff like this that negatively either. It was a little too far-fetched in both directions. Like they went too hard in the it was like two people attached to a rubber band and they were running in opposite directions. It's just and it just wasn't like that part of it didn't work from the dialogue perspective, but there were definitely some moments where I was like laughing uproariously.
Yeah, it had some kind of funny.
It had some moments.
That did well, like Rotten Tomatoes too, didn't it?
It was I don't remember,
I think it did well.
But you know what? It was worth the 90 minutes. It was worth. I think I watched it Saturday night, and then Friday night we did movie night with the girls, and I did introduce them to the first 2 Indiana Jones movies. So we are on track now.
Nice.
They loved both of them, which just makes me swell with pride because all these movies that I'm showing my kids from like the 80s and 90s, like they like all of them.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show me. One, it goes to show me two things. One, I'm raising my children well, and two, this content holds up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Because they laughed hysterically at the Naked Gun movie. Like, hysterically.
Well, I mean, I showed you my son's like, the heat conduction, right? I sent that to you, that video?
Yeah.
He that was like straight out of Chevy Chase.
It was. It was very slapstick.
Yeah. It just doesn't die. It's fun. It's fun.
Except that art form has died, which is weird to me.
But it hasn't. Like that's the crazy. Like it has
in movies.
Yes, but it's still funny.
Of course, it's still funny.
So it'll make a comeback at some point. You
just
you haven't really gotten the good people to. They don't do it anymore. So you need to find the right people to do it.
Yeah. Where have you gone, Chris Farley? I hate reminding myself of that.
Oh, by the way, I know I recommended this movie to you before, but I don't know if you watched it yet. Booksmart. It's with Eve Baxter.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah,
it's her and some other girl, and
she did show up in this recent episode too.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she came back for one weekend.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I haven't been watching that. I've been kind of because it's not as good as it was, and it makes me upset. So I haven't been following that as much. I finally caught up to the end of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, to episode 13.
Okay, good. So
and I am
with the blackout and everything.
Yeah,
the blackout episode was good.
It was so good.
It was good.
So good. Everything about it.
They have had no trouble transitioning from one network to another.
Oh, no.
They have not skipped a beat. And I would even argue
they're better.
Maybe it's better a little.
Oh, it's they've definitely hit their strides with Amy and Jake and everybody, Captain Holt and Terry Crews.
I will tell you that whoever the writers of that show,
Lieutenant now, whatever,
whoever, and especially the dialogue writers they are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are the best at what they do.
All those characters have their moments. Even Scully and Hitchcock.
Oh my God, please.
More than ever. Like they are so good.
It's honestly, in some ways, it's almost a perfect show. It really is.
It is. It's brilliant.
Because it's the one show that I always, at the end of it, I'm always like, oh man, it's already over. Like the half hour that fast. Because I just want to keep watching it.
Yeah. Me and Christine were sad. We were like, we had one episode left to finish to the end of this. And we were like, do we want to watch tonight or tomorrow?
Right. We want to stretch it out over a couple of nights or something. Yeah, I know. It's like, it's
funny. It's
one of
awesome.
it's honestly one of the best sitcoms on TV. It really is.
Me
no
and
doubt.
Christine are very similar in our relationship with Jake and Amy. Like the parallels are very, very close.
I think a lot of couples are like that, but yeah. Yeah, I mean,
and they do a good job of that. But like, that whole thing where Jake is at the end, he was like, "Oh, cool! I don't need to see it at all. I got my baby. That's all I wanted." He's like, "Oh," she's like, "I got it on video right here." He's like, "Cool, hold my baby." I was like, "I absolutely would have done that."
Right.
I absolutely. I have forever to hold you. Just
exactly. Yeah, it's a phenomenal show. It really
Terry
is.
Crews went on TikTok,
and
he did the push it dance.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
He's great.
He's
awesome. another national treasure. Terry Crews.
Awesome, yeah.
My goodness.
So good. Oh, so good. So good.
So what else did we need to touch on?
You just want to give your quick rating about Money in the Bank?
Yeah.
And then we'll sign out with Trevor Bauer.
I think WWE has done let's call it an admirable job with the obvious card that we've all been dealt here with COVID-19. I think they've done a pretty decent job. This Money in the Bank, I was actually very intrigued by because they did part of it theoretically live at the Performance Center in Orlando. And there were some matches there that were pretty good. I enjoyed some of the matches. The tag team match that started it was actually pretty solid. The New Day retained their title. Everybody retained titles. So Braun Strowman retained his title against Bray Wyatt, and there's more to come with that for sure. Drew McIntyre retained his title against Seth Rollins in a really good match that those two put on. That was actually a really excellent match. They shook hands at the end, too. It was kind of a weird ending. And then, of course, they did the dual Money in the Bank ladder matches, which, of course, were taped and filmed and had a bunch of cameos in it and everything. But it took place at the WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. They started, the men and the women started in their respective matches at the same time on the ground floor, the first floor of the building, and worked their way up to the roof for the completion of the match. Mm-hmm. Two unexpected winners, by the way, on both sides. I did not expect Asuka to win on the women's side, and nobody expected Otis to win on the men's side. But the matches, so the outcomes were interesting. Certainly not the people I would have wanted to win, but, at the same time, I was like, okay, I mean, whatever. We're all like playing by different rules right now, so who really gives a shit? These storylines are so much harder to advance without the fans in the audience, because the fans in the audience are really the ones that help drive storylines. So when you don't have that reaction, you have no idea how people are reacting when they're watching it at home on TV. But here's what I'll say. So actually it was kind of funny. Some guy on Twitter this morning who I follow, he's a good wrestling follow too. He was like, "Oh, so what's your grade, out of 5 for this pay-per-view?" And I gave it a 3.75. So call it
out of 5, you said?
3.75, which is, you know what? Again,
solid.
It's solid and decent and pretty good considering, again, the hand that we are kind of all been dealt here. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a good show. It had some real funny moments. Tim and I were texting during it last night, and we both agreed, the cameos that they were showing of, just random people from, WWE past who were just showing up in the building. Yeah. They needed to do more of those. They did, 3 or 4. They should have done, 8 or 9 or even 10. Those were great. But I also understand it's probably not that easy to get these people to the building, right? I mean, you're asking people to fly into Connecticut for basically a 30-second or less cameo as part of a match. But I will say that the way they filmed it and the way they kind of go throughout the building and have all the camera crews set up, it was actually very well done. So I give it a pretty decent mark, all things considered. Not too bad.
Awesome. All right. And then we also have Trevor Bauer's phone number.
Right. So Trevor Bauer.
On ESPN.
So ESPN actually effed this up. They fucked up pretty bad. Like they were doing a FaceTime interview with him, and they had his phone number at the top of the screen. And Trevor Bauer, listen, you could say whatever you want about this guy. I know he's quirky. I know he's a little out there. I've seen some of that firsthand just watching him at the All-Star game a couple of years ago and watching how weird he is and how much of like a loner he is with his like GoPro cam on his hat and just like talking to face. He's a weird dude. He's definitely out there. But listen, I'll tell you what, that was one of the better cases of taking a bad situation and then turning a frown upside down, because he made it. He was like, okay, instead of being raged, pissed off that ESPN actually had his phone number on there, he turned it into like a sweepstakes essentially. And he's like, look, obviously, a lot of people are calling my phone. I've left a voicemail on there with instructions on how you can win a pair of signed cleats and a signed baseball from me if you call the number. I actually did try calling the number, and I got nothing. I got that whole this number, or whatever. It wasn't disconnected, but right. I don't remember what it's. I tried calling once, and that was it. But good for Trevor Bauer. For I don't know what the instructions said, because again, I didn't even get to hear it. I just got the but. Yeah. Good for him, though. You know what? Because he could have been a dick about that. And instead, he was like, hey, I'm going to give away a pair of signed cleats and a baseball.
He's an odd bird, and that's what it is.
He is an odd bird. No other way to put it.
And in a different way of Jordan. A very different way.
Yeah, it's a very different way.
All right. Thank you guys for watching today. We are signing off, and you can find the show on Facebook.
What is Trevor Bauer's phone number? Oh, actually, I can tell you. Hold on. I will tell you. I've got it right here. So it was a Santa Clarita, California number. So it was 661-993-2905. That's his number. Again, 661-993-2905. One more time. That's 661-993-2905. Shipping and handling. That
was very good. That was good.
Thank you.
I knew exactly what you were doing.
So yeah, that's and by the way, I'm not giving out any information that wasn't already given out by ESPN.
Yes, so. ESPN gave that out pretty easily. Readily handleable. Oh my god, that was ridiculous. All right, so yeah, you can find the show on Facebook at facebook.com/Shane and the Bryman. You can find us on Twitter at Shane and Bryman. And you can find me on Twitter at Einhorst and Instagram at Happy McAvoy.
You can find me on Twitter at _Bry_man.
Yay!
661-993-2505. Post his number.
No, we're not.
No,
we're not sports. We're not Sports Center level.
Yeah, come on, we're not ESPN.
But thanks.
We're not those kind of assholes.
We'll say it over and over and over again.
Anyway, we've reached the end of the show. Part of the journey is the end. Blah, blah, blah. Stay classy, Planet Globe. We will see you. Who knows? Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
We don't.
Stay classy. Stay quarantined.
Maybe at some point you and I will do another Saturday night drinking show. Pour a couple of cold ones and just bullshit.
I like it. Anytime. I'm down for it.
Why not? What else are we doing?
Wife's on call this weekend, so.
And I'm going to maybe do my first driveway happy hour this week.
Nice.
Yeah, so we'll
We've
see
been
how
doing
that goes.
drive-by birthday parties.
Drive-by birthdays? Yeah.
Honking.
Honking the horn.
Chucking gifts out the window. And just
throw gifts out the window.
There.
Get him! Don't come near me! Yeah.
It's like you're at the zoo. You have to roll the windows up. Monkeys are getting close.
Right.
Oh, those bears.
Close. Right.
Probably should roll up these windows.
Yeah. Maybe don't throw Snickers bars at the bears next time, John Candy. Bear.
All right. Peace out.
Big bear chase me.
See you Monday, maybe Saturday. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? You never can tell.
Check in with us at Facebook or Twitter. And,
don't check on me. Go on that damn face, whatever.
I know you don't do Facebook, but I don't either. I just post the show stuff on there.
Boy, it's been like a year and a half since I left Facebook. Yeah. I don't miss it.
I still go on, but like just to check the page.
My wife's still on
I
there.
do Instagram more than anything else.
Yeah, people send me like a lot of links for Facebook material, and I'll just be like, begrudgingly, I will click on it, but then once I watch whatever it is, then I turn it off. I close it.
Did you listen to that thing that I sent you? The dumbest timeline.
Yes, I loved
it. I know you commented.
Oh, we loved it. Oh, I showed it to the kids. I showed it to Melissa. Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
What's scary though is
it's so true. I'm gonna post it in here.
That guy's funny though too. What's his name? I like
Ryan
him.
George.
Yeah, he's good.
He's great. I'm gonna post the link in the comments right here so that people can go check it out. It is absolutely amazing.
It is funny. It is funny.
So hysterical.
Yep.
And so scary. Because it's so true.
It is.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you again Monday, maybe Saturday. Who knows? Be in touch. Bye.